So I have been in the hospital since about 1:30 a.m. on Monday morning. Baby and I are being monitored. All is well.
This man is preparing to give birth in one of the least LGBTQ plus friendly states in the U.S.
Pregnant women are celebrated. Trans people are not.
Georgia has sodomy laws, HIV/AIDS criminalization laws, and no statewide policies preventing insurance exclusions for trans health care. It also has one of the most visible anti-trans politicians in Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. That means this family and this family.
For a while, it looked like we were just a regular old hetero couple.
And this family.
She told Jackson on the playground that he was stupid. Basically told him that God didn't love him.
Are all navigating building households in a state where some of their government officials say things like,
no to biological males in women's sports. No to biological males in women's shelters, locker rooms, and showers. And no to transgender medical treatments for children, which is child abuse.
So in a place where politicians filed 7 anti-LGBTQ plus bills during the 2021-2022 season, what is it like for trans residents trying to conceive, birth, and parent in the Peach State?
You know, I think we're scared about what the future holds because we're transitioning in Georgia.
The more they attack, the more visible I become.
I'm in zip code 30334 in Atlanta, Georgia. This is the state capitol, a place that's been fertile ground for anti-LGBTQ plus legislation. This local news interview with the governor shows the tone.
I've been very concerned about things that we've seen here and around the country when it comes to fairness in girls' sports, making sure our kids aren't indoctrinated in the classroom.
In early March, state Republicans tried to birth a Don't Say Gay law, but Georgians successfully fought against it. A month later, the GOP pushed through a transgender sports ban. What's important about this space is that what happens here defines the framework for how trans people are able to live, love, and grow in the state.
So look! Our baby is much bigger than last time.
It's so much bigger! Jamel Ware and his fiancé Alfonso Mills are a queer couple eagerly awaiting the birth of their first child. Jamel, a trans man, is carrying the baby they conceived without any aid. What was it like being pregnant as a man?
It was very emotional. It was very physically challenging. I mean, even the process of getting pregnant was uncomfortable. Having to ovulate and menstruate, that brought a lot of dysphoria to me. But it also made me more comfortable with my body.
Jamel was assigned female at birth and at 22 transitioned to male. He can still use his body to conceive and carry a baby.
What did that feel like for you to have to stop taking testosterone?
It felt like I was losing a part of me. It felt like a big sacrifice. Like I was sacrificing my identity to bring forth our family.
They just went and checked his cervix for the first time, and he's already 3 centimeters dilated, 80% effaced. They were so impressed. He is doing such a great job.
Georgia is a part of the Bible Belt and struggles with dealing with homophobia, transphobia, struggles with talking about sex, struggles with racism. All of those things play a part into what it's like to live your authentic self.
There needs to be a clear boundary between what you believe at home and how you treat your patients.
Jamel having to go into the hospital and having to have an F on his band because the medical system hasn't upgraded to be able to take care of trans people the way that trans people deserve to be treated.
Jamel and Alfonso hired an affirming doula and say much of their medical care was supportive. Atlanta is considered a queer haven, especially for Black people in this conservative region.
Outside of Atlanta, as a trans man, as a Black trans man, I don't find Georgia to be very safe.
Jamel also felt anger and anxiety during his pregnancy.
If I'm a man who is menstruating, does that make me a man? It made me question my identity. Well, how does the world now see me? How will they see me? Will they understand who I am? Pregnant women are celebrated. Trans people are not. And to be a pregnant trans man just made me feel vulnerable in the world.
Today we are driving to the fertility clinic. I produced a sample this morning. It's weighed pretty emotionally, not just because of going through this process, but because of how it feels in the way that it has delayed my transition a bit.
In June of 2021, I was in the backseat of Sydney Bauer's car, watching the clock tick-tock toward baby-making time. That's if we were lucky.
I'm not gonna lie, I really don't love going through this part of the process because it's very tied up with, the samples that I'm producing, like male gender roles almost.
Sydney is a trans woman, and she and her wife, Liz Reynolds, always knew they wanted children. When Sydney came out in November 2019, they sped up their timeline.
In an ideal world, we wouldn't have done this for 21 months, and I could have started them a lot earlier.
I see you getting emotional. What's making you emotional?
Really just the thought of how long Sid has delayed starting hormones. I feel like at this point in time, it's been almost a year, and I just have a lot of guilt around that.
You shouldn't have any guilt.
I know, you've been so gracious about it.
We have to be very intentional about everything and advocate for ourselves constantly because people don't really understand trans healthcare. It's been a year.
It's been a year. I know. I'm wondering what's changed.
What hasn't changed? It sucks, to be blunt, to have been trying for over 900 days.
The pair's parental status hasn't changed, but their state has.
It's been hard watching kind of how the narrative towards transgender people has really just been in the public consciousness and not in a good way. And I think with, the fear of stripping all of your reproductive rights and everything, it's even scarier.
Last year, it really felt like we could fly under the radar.
Yeah.
And now I feel like we're very much on display when we're in public.
For a while, Sydney and Liz took a break from trying to conceive, but now they've resumed their attempts. Even before Georgia began focusing on the trans community, Sydney and Liz's health insurance didn't cover their fertility treatments. The two estimate they've spent $10,000 out of pocket trying to have a baby.
How much longer are you willing to try?
We're kind of hoping to be doing IVF in July and August.
Yeah.
And then see how that works. And then we're gonna have to have another discussion about what happens after one cycle of IVF not working.
The couple put Sydney's genetic material under Liz's name because they fear what conservative politicians could do in Georgia. And though they've always felt Atlanta was a queer, safe space, they worry that could change, and also about the rest of the state.
What happens when you do conceive, and if you're still in Georgia, and you're having to raise this child in this climate that you say is so drastically different than it was a year ago?
If things keep trending in the direction that they are, I think I would feel a little bit more vulnerable.
Who knows in a few years if they've gone after same-sex marriage and same-sex rights like that. What happens if we're outside Atlanta somewhere and one of us has an accident? A hospital could turn us away being a same-sex couple. That's what I'm afraid of.
What's it like to live in Rome?
We have a rule: we don't talk about politics or religion, because it's crazy up here. There's a lot of old Southern rednecks.
Sebastian Michael is a trans man raising 2 children in Rome, Georgia, with his wife Cassie. You may not know Rome, but you've heard of its politics.
Because I want to impeach Joe Biden. Throw him out.
This is far-right politician Marjorie Taylor Greene's district. It's where Donald Trump won the county with nearly 70% of the vote in 2020. And it's where a preschooler told Sebastian and Cassie's son God didn't love him.
He came home from school one day and he was really distraught and upset and was squalling and told me that a little girl at his school said that he was stupid, that there was something wrong with him, or that our family was wrong, and basically told him that God didn't love him because told him that God didn't love him because our family wasn't right. So for my 5-year-old to come to me and tell me that just, it blew my mind, and that's why I kind of want to get away from Rome.
Cassie is originally from Rome, and she and Sebastian moved from the Atlanta metro area to take care of her ailing father. They discovered just how different Georgia can be based upon the zip code you reside.
So this job, yeah, for the most part, I do live stealth, and I do live stealth in our day-to-day lives. And in fact, Cassie will tell you there's times where she even forgets. When I was 9 months pregnant, I still tried to live as stealth as I could. I just had a hidden basketball under my shirt.
Sebastian gave birth to 2 children conceived with previous partners. His oldest, Jackson, was literally born after he had marched for hours in an Atlanta Pride parade.
How do you live stealth as a pregnant man?
Don't ask, don't tell, I guess. You just keep going on your day-to-day life and trying to live as normal as possible.
Being stealth means living your life and not announcing you've transitioned. Sebastian hasn't done this in his personal life. He and Cassie have had tension in their extended family because he's trans.
So, we actually had an incident with one of my cousins.
Recently.
And it's just recently, yeah. So he pulled me into his bedroom and was very derogatory and calling Sebastian it. And it actually got to the point to where, there was very explicit language, but overall he said that he was gonna blow Sebastian's brains all over the wall if I didn't get it out of there. So it was kind of an eye-opener with that.
Not all Sebastian's experience in the region have been bad. When he had to rush to the hospital at 28 weeks pregnant, it was his own cousin, a doctor who stopped by on happenstance, who helped ensure affirming health care.
How safe do you think it is for your family to be in Rome?
As much as I would love to put my children in bubble wrap, nowhere that we go is gonna be 100% safe for them. There's always gonna be a naysayer somewhere. So you just take it with stride and roll with the punches.
So we are 9 centimeters dilated. Well, not we, Jamel. Because he's been doing all the hard work.
Jamel and Afonso's baby wasn't due for 6 more weeks, but little C. Cannon debuted at 34 weeks because his dad had preeclampsia. He still hasn't made it home yet, but his parents are ready for him.
First, I wanted to have the rainbow, nothing too big, but just letting them know that we are a very prideful family so that C can feel pride in who we are and how we present.
Despite Jamel and Alfonso's inclusive household, C. Cannon's birth certificate has misgendered his birthing parent. It lists Jamel as his mother.
How worried are you all to be raising C in Georgia right now?
So I recognize that there is a lot of policies and things being introduced in government that are going to make it really hard. Yes, that is a concern because we want to be able to raise C in a place where C is going to be affirmed and is not going to have to worry about teachers or people picking at him. But also, I thoroughly believe that we have the opportunity to be strong advocates for what it means to have a family that is LGBTQ.
Would you ever leave?
I've never been happier in a city.
We got our passports though.
Yeah, we do have our passports, and our child will have his passport as soon as we can get a passport. So if we have to, we definitely would.